Hello, everybody. Welcome to Splintered Grace. My name is Bonnie Violet, and this is
Tina Frank, and happy Monday, everybody. I'm excited to start a conversation.
Yeah, me too. We're on episode 7. Can you believe it?
Oh, I cannot believe it. Oh, my goodness.
All right, where has the time gone?
Yeah, no doubt. I was just thinking the other day, it's the end of October. How does that even happen?
I know, right? Seven episodes, 7 weeks.
Wow.
It's
Wow.
wild. So I know, and then now we're getting to that space of like, okay, so we set the groundwork. People know us. People know where we're at, I guess. And it's like, okay, so now what do we do?
Yeah, it's like, okay, I don't know.
Yeah, so we definitely wanted to take a moment to let folks know that we are curious to know how you're experiencing this podcast, and if there are additional topics you would like for us to talk about, or if you have specific questions. Today, this episode is a really great time to do that, but know that we're open to that always. Throughout the week, if you want to reach out to us, or if you just want to bring it up, here in the comments today, whether you're watching us on Facebook or YouTube. We'd love to get your comments. And even if you're not watching us live, maybe you're catching us later in the week, leave your comments. We do, keep an eye out for them and we read them.
All of them. They're encouraging to us most of the time. And it's given us an opportunity to make a few connections with people. Some of them we haven't heard from in a while. So pretty amazing.
Yeah, definitely. I know, and that kind of leads me to, I had someone reach out to me who I haven't talked to in quite a while. Someone I'm really close to. She was super involved with Alpha. I'd met her actually through my ex-husband. That's one of the things I love about my exes is I've become really good friends with some of their friends.
That's awesome.
And Lissa had reached out to me, and she had actually talked about, or she had come across the podcast. Actually, I think I sent it to her once, but okay. She was like, did you send this specific like episode to me for a reason? And I was like, no, it was just kind of a random thought. And she's like, well, it was super timely for her.
Oh, that's amazing. That's really amazing.
Yeah. And we were talking a little bit about, we were talking about a lot of different things, just kind of getting caught up and, like she was even saying that her daughter was like, so do we need to not call, Bonnie Violet Uncle Duane anymore? Like, what do we call Bonnie Violet, And so that was just like a small little bit of it. But she was also talking about how she serves as a chaplain in Las Vegas at the jail. With women, I believe it is the women's jail, and then men's solitary. And she was just talking about how that experience was for her, and this idea of like she's very much she's just very removed from that environment and from that sort of I guess the perception of that she would have, like she would end up there, right?
I gotcha.
She's I don't know. I mean, I think people would make a lot of assumptions just like we do with everyone else. And I think most people would think like, why is she here? And she was sharing that was a lot of her own kind of like challenge or like fears, right? And I have a lot of that in situations whenever I go, into new spaces where I don't know people. I either feel like they're going to think all these things about me, which may or may not be true.
It's true.
But she was talking about how, she has really like people have received her and she's had such a great experience being there.
That's awesome.
And then we kind of got to this idea of, and I was talking with her a little bit about like my gender questioning and naming and all that sort of stuff. And she was asking about, or it came up the idea of like seeking to understand, like in the prayer, St. Francis of Assisi's prayer, which is commonly known as an 11-step prayer in AA, it has a line that mentions, God help me to seek to understand rather than be understood. And that got us thinking, like, is that the goal? Like, is our goal to understand?
Yeah, that's a great question. Just for any area of our life, I think that's the question we should all be trying to answer.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I think understanding sounds like, I think it sounds like it's a goal. It's something that just happens and then you're done. But I think that understanding it's an action. Like it's something that almost always has to be happening in some ways, because
I agree.
like even my understanding of myself changes all the time. So how can I expect like you to fully understand me
Right.
one day if the next day it's going to be something different? And
If you take that back to the original prayer, your goal isn't for me to understand you.
right.
It's for you to understand and move forward. And if if you become understood, I think that's by grace, by the grace of the situation, the grace of God, who makes you understood to the people around you. I think that's amazing. If we just focused on understanding understanding who we are, or understanding the people around us, then the focus would be gone on ourselves. Because I think when we're trying to pursue something on our own, we get tripped up a lot about for ourselves. I mean, not on our own, but for ourselves.
Yeah. I mean, I think the big idea, I think it's a great reminder, like whether it's a prayer or a mantra. I know a lot of people utilize these sorts of statements for different ways, but I think ultimately it's just a reminder that like, let me get out of my way here. Let's not make this about me right now. And let's just try to like be present with the other person.
Yeah.
Rather than kind of figuring out, I don't know, just wanting to be, which is hard because I know it's been hard for me at times, because there's times when, you know, I want to be seen or I want certain sort of response from people. Sometimes I just want a little attention or whatever.
Right.
But what that can do sometimes is if I'm not mindful, I could be going to the wrong places to get the wrong sort of like solution. Like people talk about going to the hardware store for a gallon of milk. Like for me, I lacked a lot of emotional literacy, I would say. Like I didn't always know what emotions I was having or what I was going through, and kind of how then do I kind of soothe or address that sort of like feeling or thought or whatever that I'm going through.
You know, that this is going to come across probably crass, but I spent a lot of my life learning how not to be controlled by my emotions. And I feel like that statement that you made, it goes along with that. Someone told me a long time ago, or I heard someone say it, and kind of I took it on as my mantra, is that my life is not my own. And I believe that my life was bought by the blood of Jesus. So if my life is not my own, then why am I so worried about it? If my purpose here really is to serve the people around me and to understand and honor the people around me, then why am I allowing all the emotions about me dictating what I do? I'm reminded, and I may have shared this even before, as my grandkids have grown up, you know, they've grown up to that superhero stage. And when we talked about if they were a superhero, what would their powers be? And I shared with mine would be the power to choose, because understanding or being understood is a choice. Do I want to push through and make sure I'm understood, or do I care enough about this person to just understand them and trust that I'll eventually be understood?
Right.
I think that's a huge thing, a huge growth point. So yeah.
So did you ever have a challenge with your emotions?
Oh my goodness. All the time. All the time. I have challenges about my emotions. You know, just like you said, when you're going into a room of strangers, and especially if you walk in and you're physically different, you think everyone's looking at you and everyone has an opinion. You know, everyone has an opinion. You just have to decide how you want to react. Okay, obviously they're looking at you for whatever reason, great or negative, who knows? But you can't get caught up on all that. That's an emotional response. You know, if someone says something to you well, I'll give you an example. I had someone say to me in love one time that I shouldn't show up at a certain group of meetings because I was too intimidating, and people didn't want to come because I was too intimidating. And I was like, oh, I was like, I could choose. I could be offended and try to defend myself and say those people need to get over themselves, or whatever. Or I could say, you know what, this particular meeting is something that is a choice for me. It's not something that I need or to move forward in my life. So I said, thank you for sharing that with me. And I stepped back, and sure enough, there was a shift there. And now, had I gotten offended, one, my relationship with this person would have probably went by the wayside. It did not, because she came back around and said to me, I think the way I said that sounded wrong. She says, I was just telling you that because I care about you, and I know you were concerned about why people weren't coming. So had I taken that totally out of context, the whole thing could have just went sideways. The way it was, I was able to step back, keep relationship with the person who loved me enough to talk to me, and make the opportunity available to other people who truly needed it. I was just there as an opportunity to just be there and network and whatever. So it was for me, I think I was being needed to understand them and not worry about being understood. So that was a learning point and an emotional point I had to choose, not how to respond to that. And that happens, I think, for all of us in different times during the day.
Well, and I think that can give us an idea about Grace as well, because, it even sounded like she maybe didn't come at it in the best way, right?
Right.
She came by it from love, but maybe it was a little jumbled, and maybe it wasn't said in the best way, and maybe she needed to experience things different to really get a better sense of where things are at. So I think that's something to try to keep in mind of too, is we're not always at our best every day. So somebody's reaction to me oftentimes really isn't usually about me.
Right.
Or very little, at least.
That's true. We've talked before that hurting people hurt people. So we just have to remember that. So emotions are tough. And then when you have the other kinds of emotions, people hurt your feelings, people say something negative to you, people don't include you, people don't understand you. There's a whole gamut of emotions that we were designed to have, that there can be honoring to us, especially when we need to be empathetic to people or be able to come alongside people. Those emotions are necessary, but we really need to not let them control us. We need to control them with wisdom.
Right. Well, for a long time, I also wanted to say hello to Stephen. Hello, Stephen in Chicago on Facebook. It's great to have you join us today.
Oh, don't they have snow there?
I heard it just started snowing there today. Yeah. This morning I saw someone shared on their Facebook Live.
Oh yeah, no snow for me.
Well, and I think I learned, or I perceived that I started bottling up my emotions really early in life. When I was young, I had a problem with crying. We've talked about that before, and that would just create a whole lot of more discomfort than the crying, right? And I really couldn't control the crying. And I don't know. It's I think I started to learn to try to suppress some of those emotions, some of those feelings, and try to just push them away or not experience them. I think I felt for a long time that my feelings didn't matter in a situation. And I didn't realize it at the time, but somehow along the way, I picked up that my feelings, my emotions didn't really matter. And also somehow I just lost touch of them, in a lot of relationships, or, when I've been a liar in the past, it's usually about my emotions. And oftentimes that has to do with me not knowing my emotions, not really, I might say that it's this thing, but the reality is it's this thing. Because for a long time, I couldn't discern what I was feeling and what I was going through, because so much of my response was just to kind of numb out. Anger, not acceptable. That's a not acceptable behavior. But the way that plays out for me, because if I don't express it in some way, if I'm not saying to you I'm angry, if I'm not saying to God that I'm angry about this thing, if I'm not getting it out in some way, then it's going to come out in other ways. And I think for me, I learned to kind of punish myself, or to to kind of like take it out on myself, whether it was in my thoughts and my thinkings, or it was kind of making choices and taking part in behaviors that led to some sort of like harm, if you will, like that kind of I don't know, it seemed to like maybe balance out that anger or take it away or whatever. I mean, I'm not saying it was a great way.
Right.
But it
Well,
was something that, go ahead.
I said that's an interesting thought. I mean, what about our outlets? What kind of outlets? Because you're right. I think we can't just stuff these emotions and hope they go away. These are things that we need to work through. We just don't necessarily work through them in the ways that we usually do and cause harm and offense to the people around us. So let's talk about outlets. You said you took on an approach where you were hurting yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Right. I get that. And I think a lot of people struggle with that. We hear it now, especially I'm hearing more and more in young people. They're dealing with things by hurting themselves and retracting, even to the point where they're taking their lives.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's really something that's horrific. And I think we need to be talking about this stuff a little more. I think we need to be offering up alternatives a little more, but I think we need to do it under the right guise.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I think there's a balance between my life is not my own and my life has value. So those are both true statements, and the balance is the challenge I think that we're all having, because if you go too far one way or the other, then you're in this huge area of hurt and offense for yourself and for the people around you. So, let's talk about some of those outlets you mentioned, and that one's mine. I yell at God sometimes.
Right.
It's like, come on, I don't have another outlet. I choose not to yell at whoever it is I'm angry at, because I know hurting people hurt people, but this sucks. And I have no issues about telling God. I'll tell him at the top of my voice in the middle of the day. I don't even care. And here's the thing. I think God wants us to do that, because that's truth. We've talked about that before. We want to live in truth. We don't want to hide our emotions. But I think it's that moment that we can start to work through it, get it out there. And I believe that God is the only one who can really, truly help us work through that moment and gain a perspective where we can move forward. Now, he's going to do that directly, and he's also going to do it by the people that he puts around us. But I think there does have to be a voice for that, but a loving voice, not an angry voice, hateful voice, or an offending voice.
Yeah. And, I think depending on what message you take from God, it could, like, it should be a space of loving and support and kind of helping you through where you're at. But I know, like, the world, I mean, some of what the challenges are for me is kind of unwrapping those, like, as a man, this is how you're supposed to respond emotionally or not. These are the acceptable emotions and unacceptable emotions. If you're a woman, then you have these or that, or you know what I mean? And now we even maybe have these ideas of, like, if you're gay, like, we might even have some ideas of who you are and what your emotions and thoughts are. And same with, like, maybe even trans, we're starting to get a little bit more kind of information out there. But again, we have to be careful of just the one narrative. But I think that can be a really challenging thing, because I think our world tells us not to feel the way we feel. And if we do, to not let people see it. And again, it just kind of depends on your situation and circumstance on what emotions feels appropriate or inappropriate, depending upon, like you said, like who you're around. And ever since I started, reaching to God and having spirituality in my life again, that's begun to change for me as far as, I mean, the big part was just beginning to just have an awareness, to know that when I'm feeling this way, it's, this is a feeling.
Right.
And this is like, oh, I'm sad. Oh, do I need to get mad at myself because I'm sad and try to get happy?
No.
Or do I just sit in that sadness and realize, you know what, girl, you kind of have stuff to be sad about. I ran for a really long time from especially sadness, especially difficult thoughts and feelings. And I chased it with glitter and, fun stuff. And, I think, eventually that stuff, it catches up with you.
I agree. I agree.
And go ahead.
I don't know how deep you want to go here, but
Let's go.
you know, I remember reading in Genesis when Adam and Eve were in the garden, and that initial sin when they God came and he was looking for them, and he couldn't find him, and finally he says, where are you? Come out. And they said, we can't because we're naked.
Mm.
And I'll never forget this when the Holy Spirit landed this on my heart. And God said to them, well, who told you you were naked?
Mm.
And so when I'm faced with an emotion like that, a sadness, an inferior type motion, or a not understanding what's happening, at first, that's the first question I ask myself, well, who told me this?
Mm.
And my gauge on who told me this, it's not necessarily a person. Sometimes it is, because I think there are some times when we have to consider the source that we're hearing from. But sometimes I think, so where did I hear this from? Did I hear this from a viable place? And for me, that only viable place is my Bible, because I believe those are the words of my Creator. He created me. So do I find this in the pages of the Bible? Who told me this? Who told me I needed to be sad in this instance?
Mm.
Who told me I was less than? Who told me that because I like glitter, that's wrong? Who told me that I couldn't cry because I'm a boy? Who told me I couldn't do this or that because I'm a girl? Who told me that? Because those are not the words of my Creator. And
Right.
we talked about this a few episodes ago, the difference between life and culture. And I think this is on that again and again. The when we can assess the words of our Creator, they're always going to bring us to a place of life.
Mm.
They're not going to bring us to a place of culture. A lot of times it's going to be counterculture, and that's going to require us to make a choice. And there we go, back to that superpower. You can use your superpower to choose above the cultural standard and choose life. You can choose to stay trapped in that culture and then walk through the damage that that's going to bring, because there's going to be damage. The good news is, no matter what we choose, there's always grace on the other side.
Mm-hmm.
The choice that we make is part of the journey that we're about to go on. And so it's very, very important. So that's one of the questions, and that's one of my core value questions is when I'm faced with something, or especially when it's something, I'm a person that wants to be the best person that I can be every day, and I get it wrong every stinking day. But one of the questions I try to ask myself is, who told you that? And if it's not someone that loves me, or someone that I love, or someone that came from my Creator, then I kind of set that aside. And I strive every single day to live a life full of joy, because happiness is cultural, joy is eternal.
Mm.
And so I don't need to be happy. I need to be joyful. And joy is a choice, no matter what situation I'm in. You can read books about all these people who chose joy and chose that these people weren't going to bother them, no matter what their circumstance was. That's a joy choice.
Yeah.
That's not a happy choice. And so I just want to encourage you and anyone else that, man, we got to ask ourselves that question. Who is telling us these things about who we are, outside of who we know we are to be, and outside of what our Creator says about us?
Yeah. I mean, I think joy is already inside us. And
Yeah,
so
I agree.
it's about tapping into it and letting it out. Happiness to me is all the things around, like on the outside, that can maybe make me feel elated or happy in that moment, whether it's a good time I'm having with somebody, or a house, or a new car, or a new job, like those sorts of things, being on the beach. But joy is something from within that you can actually experience even when you're at a funeral, or you're, you know what I mean? Like it's something that you can tap into because it's always there.
I think that's a great definition of both of those, Duane. Perfectly said. I couldn't have said it that well.
Well, I think when you're talking about this idea of like our Creator, like really turning toward our Creator for our answers, and I think that made me think of like creation. Like regardless of how you believe, whether you believe in the Bible or you believe in some other sort of like idea, like creation is not something that just happened and it's done. Like I think to live is to create. Like, and I think for what I've chosen to do with a spiritual life, what I've chosen to do is to be a co-creator with my creator. Because for so long, I wasn't even letting God really create me. God was a part of that process, but I wasn't connected with that idea. And so I was created by what had happened to me, kind of like what you're talking about, because of this situation, because of being, a victim of sexual assault, or because of using drugs, or because of blah, 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 then like I kind of let these things happen to me and create these responses that I felt like I didn't have a part of. And now I get to be a co-creator. So it doesn't necessarily mean that I don't get hit by that car.
Right.
What it does mean is that I get to decide how getting hit with that car is going to impact my spirit, my maybe my mind. Like there are some things that I'm not going to be able to, change.
Right.
But how I co-create the response to that happening is like what I think that's where spirituality comes into play for me. Like that's where tapping into God helps me as a human in living through whatever challenge or thing that has come at me.
Yeah. I think that's good. That's great. I feel the same way. That I'm a co-creator, because I really believe that I have the ability, you have the ability, each one of us has the ability to create a world around us that's never existed. Because without us, it can't.
Right.
And so that's amazing. We both have that basic understanding, although we haven't really talked about it much. So that's amazing.
Right. Well, and just like, I don't know if this is like take us anywhere else, but I think that idea of choice as well, when you're talking about, I want to bring up what comment is here, and then maybe I'll jump back to choice, because I feel like it's changing a topic potentially.
Okay.
So do you want to read that?
Yeah, it's from Angel. Is it Baton or Baton? I don't know. I apologize if I said it wrong. I'm going to reach out to my sister and wish her happy birthday. She's a disciple of Christ and has chosen to not stay as close to me as we used to because I'm no longer a disciple of Christ. How can I value our relationship and not feel any resentment for how she chooses to push me away because I'm a gay man? That's a tough one. That's really a tough one. You want to go first, Duane?
My thought is that could you speak? I don't know. How can I value our relationship and not feel any resentment?
Well, I'm going to say that's kind of our topic that we've been talking on today. It's going to be a choice that you're going to have to make. Although initially it's not going to be an easy choice, and it's going to be, you're still going to have the effects of it, but you're going to have to approach above that. I encourage you to reach out to your sister with no expectation as to how she needs to respond to you. My guess is that she's in a position where she's choosing a tradition or a list of rules over what the Word of God says, even though she's a Christ follower, because a Christ follower is supposed to walk in love, and we're supposed to anyway, love everybody. And none of us are perfect. We all have our issues, and I don't have any right to assess your issues. The only right I have is to love you, and in the moment that you need me, to stand beside you and help you work through whatever issues you want to work through, and to pray for you. If she disagrees, the position I would take would be to pray for you. Because I think when we pray for other people, no matter if we agree or not, that gives God the opportunity, especially as a Christ follower, the opportunity to open our eyes so that we can see, and open our ears so that we can hear the love that he has, that he wants to flow through us to the people around us. So she may not know she loves you, but I think in the end, if you continue to set this resentment aside and reach out to her, I think at the end she will realize that she loves you even more than she did the day you decided to step away or did something different than what she wanted you to.
Yeah.
That is right. Say that right. So,
well, and I know Angel pretty well too. And I think that other aspect, because you do have prayer in your life, is that you pray for her.
Yeah.
And a lot of our kind of, we stay in a lot of the same spiritual settings. And a lot of the times we're supposed to pray for those who we have a hard time being with, And so I would just encourage that as well. And, I think, said, how can I value our relationship and not feel resentment? I think letting go of that idea that you can value something that doesn't lead to a resentment. I mean, I feel like that's kind of part of that's part of what comes with any sort of valuable relationship, is that there's going to be anger, there's going to be hurt, there's going to be like things not happening the way that you want them to happen right now.
That's true.
I think, I know that like it's taken, Angel, I know that it's taken you a while to be okay with being a gay man and being a spiritual person. And, she probably needs that time too. And she doesn't have maybe the same investment in it as you do. I mean, it's your life. It's your, that's like, it's all about you. So of course it's a little bit more, I don't know, in your face, but I think maybe she just needs a little time. But also that, maybe you being able to reach out to her and let her know, like kind of where you're at, what you're thinking, or maybe it is just saying hello. Maybe it isn't about trying to go into anything really deep right now, but just trying to make just a very superficial, what kind of might seem a superficial kind of just connection, just to let her know that you're thinking of her and you, I don't know, you're just thinking of her.
Yeah. One thing I've decided as I've gotten older, it's amazing what wisdom comes as you get older, is that people don't get to choose who I get to love. So, I have people around me that get angry at me, and then they say, you can't love me. You can't do that. You can't pray for me. You can't do that. And I'm like, well, I'm sorry. You don't get to choose that I love you, but I do love you, and I'm going to continue to love you, and you can respond to me however you want.
Yeah.
And I think taking a proaction in love, and I understand it looks like that you're mad, that it's hard to not be mad at God. I totally get that, but understand that this is her choice, not God's choice for her, because God's response is always love. So take that out, yell at God, have him reveal that to you, talk it through with God, because he wants to have that conversation with you in prayer. But again, if love your sister. I think it's amazing that you want to, especially if she's chosen to separate. So I encourage you to follow through there and choose to love her, even if she doesn't want to be loved. And there's a lot of ways that you can do that.
Yeah. And I think the other part of that is just to kind of do your work, do the work that you need to do on you so that you can show up in the best way that you can,
Yeah.
Because I feel like part of that is understanding, what's our part in this relationship? Like, is there a possibility that she feels the same way about you and she just doesn't know how? And maybe there's things that you've done or said, or maybe you've created distance, maybe there are some things that are on your side. I know for me, that was a lot of what I came to realize, is that there was so many walls and so much distance I created between me and a lot of the people who I cared about. And so what are they supposed to think of that? Like, are they supposed to think I want distance? Are they supposed to, all these sorts of things? Again, if we're not communicating, then we're just making up shit in our head. And it's easier said than done, but I think just, just saying, hey, what's up, sis? And then going home and writing in your journal or whatever, and getting mad at God because you maybe wanted to say something more, or you wished she would have said this and not that. And just kind of like try to take it out, not necessarily directly with her at first. And then you can find a way to kind of address, because there are sometimes you do have to set up boundaries, and sometimes you do have to decide that you need distance, because I know I've had to do that, like for realsies, not because I was like I've made the conscious decisions at times that I need to have separation because this person has the power to hurt me in a way that I can't let go of. And I need to be able to like work with myself on that, because I shouldn't give anybody that sort of power over me, no matter how much I love and how much I care about them.
That's right. That's right.
Because that's more about me and my stuff than it really, again, is about them. Like, that's me expecting something from them that is not reasonable or acceptable, really. And I got to find a way to take care of myself so that I'm not trying to, get that from somebody else other than myself or like in combination with God.
Yeah. Yeah. That's good wisdom.
And just for folks who are listening, Angel had said, I love her dearly, but I don't know how to put our personal beliefs aside and not be mad at God. And then he's also saying, that's a good point. Thank you. Thanks so much for bringing up the question, Angel.
Yeah, we appreciate it. And we're happy to share our experience.
Love to hear how it goes too.
Yeah, definitely.
Wish you all the best. I'll be keeping you both in I light candles. That's kind of how I pray. That's what I do, my ritual. And so I'll light some candles for you and your sister.
Awesome. I'll be praying for you as well. Just give it some time. I think it's easy for us to have a conversation on this side of the choices that we've made and the experiences we've had together and as individuals. I think sometimes I forget, at least, that there's still people out there walking through some of this stuff. So I'm grateful to have the opportunity to share what little bit of wisdom that I may have to share. So, Angel, I appreciate you asking.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
And Angel's got youth on his side.
Oh, okay.
Like we got almost, 20 years on him. So
all right. So Angel's going to be able to take this and run with it and bless a whole bunch of people.
I know, just to have some self-awareness and that desire. And I mean, really, that's what it takes.
It does. And some tenacity.
Definitely, right?
Yeah.
And Angel's tenacious.
Awesome.
Angel's also a drag queen. Like, even if you have to dive into and have Linda Summers channel you some tenacity, do that.
Yes, definitely.
Sure.
That's awesome.
So I guess one of the things that I was thinking about earlier when you were talking about choice and like the superpower of choice or choosing, I think that too was something that I'm still realizing, but like the idea of having choice is not something many of us are told or taught. We're like, we grow up in a certain part of the country or part of the world. We're born into certain families and certain dynamics and certain cultures. And depending upon those things, then the expectation or what's really available to you seems limited, and sometimes that does have to, that has to do with geography. It has to do with age. It has to do with race at times. It has to do with income, education, all these sorts of things that cause us to believe or tell us that we don't have choice. Now, we might not always have the choices that we want in this particular moment, but that doesn't mean that those can't become, you still can't choose to work toward it or experience it.
Right. And the whole list that you gave is a list of culture, not a list of life. And we got to remember that so culture sometimes is what we fall back on because it's what we know. It's our comfort zone. It's the space that we've created for ourselves. And my parents couldn't give me anything but the culture that they had, especially if they also didn't understand their power of choice. This understanding of the power of choice was a process that I had to learn. And I only was able to learn it by going through some crazy stuff and by realizing, hey, I'm out here by myself. What happens if the worst case scenario happens? What am I going to do? And when I couldn't answer that question, because I certainly couldn't run to the people around me for whatever it is I thought I needed, I thought I need to find a way out. And when I had given my life to the Lord when I was in high school, but I had lost all of that in the process and the crazy of chasing culture. And so once I started to go backwards and to realize and to get in and read and to expose myself to people, even though I didn't agree with everybody, because I was still very abrasive, very cultural, very flesh. Like it was that process that I understood.
Mm-hmm.
So when I understood that in Genesis, that I get to choose who told me that, that just blew my mind.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's a beginning point for a lot of people, or it can be. Um, who's telling you what you're hearing?
Yeah.
You know, man, that's just so freeing if you can understand that one thing.
Mm-hmm. And I think regardless of whatever like spirituality or religion that you're in, there are, promises that come with, being involved in that sort of community. Like there are promises that God has told you about yourself and what you can expect and what you can hope to experience. Same with most any other spiritual realms. And they all kind of usually give you kind of like the tools and how to achieve those sorts of things as well, or to experience those sorts of things with the help of your God or Buddha, or whatever it is that you're tapping into, to kind of have that experience. But I think all we have to do is, again, like you said, look back into like who's telling us these lies about ourselves,
Right.
and who can we go to that's going to tell us, not only what we want to hear, but
Right. The truth.
the
Because
truth.
sometimes the truth isn't what we want to hear.
But it is, like
No,
in our,
no, it's not really.
we
Let me
might
give
not,
you. Okay,
we
go
may
ahead.
not enjoy it, but I still think ultimately we want to know the truth. Like, I don't know. I want to know the truth, and I want to live into the truth of things. That doesn't mean I'm going to enjoy hearing the truth
Right.
or
That's right.
experiencing the truth.
That's right. That's true.
Yeah.
So thank you for clarifying, because we were on the same page. I just wasn't understanding it that way. I'm like, wait a second.
I mean,
Yeah,
the truth hurts. If the truth was easy, we'd all just fucking like be sipping it in our tea.
that's
But
right.
most of us run from it in so many different ways,
Right.
because it can be, we
Hmm.
can, again, I think, choose to experience it painfully.
Yeah, we
Um,
can. But truth brings growth, and a positive
Usually.
growth or negative growth.
Mhm.
It has the power to bring growth. And like you said earlier, it's the truth about me, myself, not the truth about you. Because my truth, I just need to focus on me, and make sure that I understand you, so that I will eventually be understood. So yeah, so that's yeah.
Yes. Sorry, I was just checking our time.
It's okay.
Jennifer says, amen.
Thank you, Jennifer.
Hello, Jennifer. Thank you for joining us today. Do you know Jennifer?
I know Jennifer. She worships at the same church that I do. She's a beautiful, beautiful woman. We are blessed to have her in our community, and I'm sad because I think she's moving to California. But
Oh,
we're gonna enjoy her until she moves. I hope she doesn't mind me saying that.
yeah.
But yeah, so I appreciate your encouragement, Jennifer.
Well, in the virtual world, we're still kind of get to see each other, but
That's true.
um,
That's true.
do you know which part of California?
I'm not sure. I'm thinking
I
it's
know, right?
Southern Cal.
We
I
won't go
think it's
that
around
far,
San
but
Diego. But yeah,
I was like, maybe we can connect somehow. But awesome.
so she's further south than you, I think.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
oh, San Diego, she
San
says.
Diego.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, she says it's okay that you told people.
I'm
Phew.
telling everybody's business
Uh,
online. So
right?
anyway,
Yeah.
so yeah. Anyway, God is good, and I'm so excited for the changes that He's made in me over the years, because it's qualified me to sit here and have a conversation as well as a relationship with you. And had
Mm.
that not happened, then this may not have happened. So I'm grateful.
Yeah.
I'm grateful.
Me too. I don't think I would have been open. Yeah. I mean, I don't think I would be live. I wouldn't be alive today if I didn't find spirituality. I
Yeah.
know that to be the truth. I've never would have thought, and like trigger warning, or like we might talk a little bit about like suicide here for a minute, but like that had never really been, it's hard for me to think that that would ever be this situation, because I think one of the things I talked that when we were talking about harm and self-harm earlier, I think a lot of the times it's super subtle for me. Like I'm harming myself, but I'm not like calling it that. I'm not like saying I'm going to harm myself because blah, blah, blah. Like usually for me, it comes out in these different ways. However, there are some times when, it is a little bit more obvious and maybe you are a little bit more connected to that. But suicide in particular is something that has impacted my life in like traumatic ways. I lost a friend in shelter in place to suicide, and the 28th is the anniversary of the passing of my ex-lover, Stephen, and so he was high on meth and jumped off of a building. So whether that was the drug or the suicide or both, I mean, either way, it's suicide, right? But like, and a lot of the times I think that's a lot of the times the drug use, sometimes substance use, mental health, all those sorts of things are so intermeshed that sometimes it's hard to discern what's going on there,
Yeah, that's so, it's sad. It's horrifying.
Yeah.
I feel like, and this is just my opinion, so y'all can be angry at me if you want to, but I feel like we've allowed our culture to really steal from each one of us. And when we can continue to allow it to run crazy like it is and watch the destruction of people at every age group, but specifically these younger kids, I feel like we should be better protectors of these young people. That we should be teaching them about their ability to choose. We should be teaching them about a creator that created them for a purpose, because they're amazing, because they're unique, because they've got something wonderful to offer that the world's going to miss out on. And I'm just like, wow, I really feel sometimes when I watch the news or anytime I hear about it, it just hurts my heart. And so that's one of the things that I strive to. And I would pray that as a culture, we could turn that around and stop being so hateful and angry with people. Let's have some tolerance. Let's look past some of this crazy stuff that our culture dictates that we have, and let's find some love. Let's find some compassion for one another. Let's teach these kids how to love one another and love themselves, and let them figure these things out by teaching them who God is, teaching them who the Creator is, and how much He loves them and how unique they are. I look at these little kids as I've watched my kids and my grandkids. I've had a different eye. I want to know my kids a little different because I was too caught up in it. My grandkids I've been able to watch from a distance, and I feel like I see different things in them. But to see the things that's unique about them, to see the things that God's put in them, to see the hope and the potential that they carry, it's like we need to be embracing that and nurturing that, and not trying to strip it away and make it fit into this mold of whatever the culture or the life is. That just really breaks my heart. So when I hear these numbers about suicide, oh my gosh, it's just horrifying to my spirit.
Yeah. Well, and the thing that kind of comes to mind too, and what I heard a lot in what you had to say was like it's like our suicide rates, our overdoses, our murders, our shootings, all these sorts of things, like these are manifestations and products of the way that we live in the world. It's not, individuals are a part of this, and there is individual choice, so to speak, or like the individual has some responsibility in that.
Of course.
And it's created. Like, it's not just something, I think if we weren't influenced by those things, whatever it is, whether it's chemicals in our brain, whether it's the home that we live in or the city that we live in, or whatever the situation, like those sorts of results wouldn't be happening I believe if we could create an environment and a community in which people don't need to experience life in that way. You know what I mean? And so I think looking at it and thinking like, okay, we see all these things happening and thinking like, oh, well, that person needed to, or that person needed to. It's more of like, okay, so what can we do? What needs to change in the world so that we can begin to have different results as a people? Like, I believe in oneness. I believe that we're all connected, and that, like together we're one, and that's how even God created us, right? And so, like I need to if it's important for me to be well, it's important for the people around me to be well. And like, and if they're not, what can I do about that? If I can do about that, not in a way of like savioring, but just in like an honest way of like, what is my part? And I think for me, generationally, it's like, what can I do different? Kind of, I think even for you, and I think for most people, it's like, what can I do different for those younger than me than what was afforded me at their age or that time? Whether that's through my kids as a parent or my grandkids as a grandparent, or like for me, I don't have children. I don't have that sort of experience, but I do have opportunities with working with people who are at a different place in life, where maybe I'm a little further ahead than their experience, whether it has to do with age or whatever it is that they're going through.
Right.
I lost my train of thought there for a second, but
it's okay. It's okay. We just have to be aware of the people around us, and we have to be aware. And for me, I think prayer changes things. And so when I feel like there's not something tangible that I can do for you, then I'm going to pray for you. And I believe that prayer changes things. I believe prayer changed me personally. I believe prayer has changed my family and the people around me. And so I've definitely been praying. And I think we as a nation, or as a people called by God or created by God, if we started to pray, not just for ourselves, but for the people around us, I think we would see some change. Because I think only in then can we experience things. I remember a Bible teacher saying to me, God can't drive a parked car. So if I'm parked right here on my own concerns, my own life, my own issues, and I'm not trying to move forward to help people around me, then I'm limiting God's ability to work through me. And so if I can at least see enough to not pray for my list of things that I want, but pray for my neighbor to feel better, pray to have good relationship with the people around me, pray for favor over the place of business that I work at, whatever it is. Those are the types of things I think that can change. These are choices that we can make that can help, no matter if we can do anything tangible or not. And I've decided, for me, I'm no longer playing a victim. I'm very proactive. I'm going to be proactive tangibly. I'm going to be proactive spiritually. And I believe that I can make a difference by walking in love to anybody or with anybody that God puts in front of me. And that is my commitment to myself and to the people around me and to anyone that God puts in front of me, and to all of you who take the time to interact with us, or watch this. That is my commitment. And I'm going to stand on that and do whatever I can to be a loving, kind representative of our Creator.
Right. Yes. And Jennifer also, says something along the same line around being compassionate and empathetic, etc. We are all walking through this life.
Amen.
Together,
Amen. I told you she was awesome.
She is. And I think that kind of takes it, for me, it takes us right back to where we started with that seeking to understand. Another part of that prayer is to seek me, or it also asks that I seek to love rather than be loved, which I think is exactly kind of what you said, this idea of like, instead of me trying to get mine, like, let's have me help you get yours. And in me helping you get yours, I get mine, or I get away from that belief or that idea that I'm not getting mine, that I don't have enough, that I don't blah, 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 because that's not the truth of it all.
That's right. That's right.
Yes. Well, we are right at our end of time, I think.
Already?
I know, right? It flew away. We are at 11:25, so we just have a few more minutes if you'd like to share something more before we go.
Oh, I have too much to share. I just want to encourage everyone, because I know sometimes our conversations are felt like today this can be perceived as heavy. It's not. One step, do one thing different today, make one different choice. And it gets easier and easier. as you start to make different choices for circumstances that you've been walking in.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I feel like there's a heaviness for our topics, but I think that we can carry it lightly, right? We can still carry it with some joy or what have you. So,
most
right?
definitely. Most definitely. Yeah, we need to carry it with joy.
All right. And then before I go, I'm just going to take a little moment to plug our show. So we meet every Monday at 10:30 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. You can watch us on our personal Facebook accounts, or you can go to Splintered Grace Facebook. You can also, a queer chaplain is a company or organization. I don't know what I'm calling it yet, but it's kind of the umbrella of all the work that I'm doing. And so it's kind of supporting this podcast to some degree.
Yep.
And so we have a YouTube channel. A queer chaplain has a YouTube channel in which you can watch all of the episodes as well. So if you've missed previous episodes and you're challenged with finding them on Facebook or wherever you're watching us, you can also find them on YouTube. Also, if you prefer, if it might be easier to listen to us, we do also have a podcast. So anywhere you listen to a podcast, just look for Splintered Grace. You can find us on Apple, Amazon, iHeartRadio, any of those places, you should be able to find us. And yeah, please, if you do, write some reviews for us, give us some stars. That just helps more people get to see our stuff. That's like the stuff that we don't want to talk about, because we're just like, we're just here talking and hoping to connect with you all. And, I guess the more people that can hear, then actually that doesn't even matter.
Yeah. It is basically, if you know someone who can benefit from our conversation today, feel free to share it. Thank
you. That's perfect.
Yeah.
Yes. If it's helpful to you, maybe it'll be helpful to somebody else.
Maybe.
So we will. Thanks so much, Tina, again for meeting with us this morning. Thank you, Jennifer and Angel. And I'm trying to remember the first person. Last name was Simon. Thank you all for joining us today and commenting. And wish you all a great week. Again, we encourage you to reach out to us during the week if you'd like. And until then, we'll see you next Monday.
God bless everybody.
All right. Bye-bye. Mwah. Splintered Grace Podcast is brought to you by a queer chaplain. Follow us on all of our social media, Instagram, YouTube, and Facebook at a queer chaplain. Listen to us wherever you listen to podcasts. Subscribe, comment, like, and share. Feel free to tip us at Venmo, Bonnie Violet, and support monthly on Patreon. The song is original by Stephen Sandnoff, The Chasm Between Us. Rest in peace, Stephen.